Hello buzzers, John here. In this video I wanted to talk about something that's really important when it comes to layers. Now we've had 2 layers videos so far, and please have a look through the archive and have a look at the first one and the second one to get up to speed with the overall concept of layers. But what I want to address in this video very specifically is the subject of layer masking. Now this is kind of scary because layer masking sounds dead technical, and of course it is, it's terribly hard to do. No, I'm kidding, it's actually really easy. So what I want to do first of all is kick off with a really simple illustration to show you what layer masking is and what it does. So let's just make a new document. I'm just going to go to File and choose New. I'm in Photoshop CC by the way, and I'm just going to make a that'll do, 500 by 500 pixels, that'll be fine. Doesn't matter about the resolution or anything, I'm just going to make a little document here, a little image, and hit create. So that gives me my white square 500 by 500 pixels. That's all I've got. I'm going to fill this with a colour. So I'll go over to my colour swatches. Yours will be set to black and white, but to change them, just pick black and pick a red colour, something like that. And then to fill this document, all I'm going to do is hold down the Alt key and hit backspace. That gives me a flood fill of that particular image with red. So that's done, I'm happy with that. What I'm now going to do is make another document, so I'll go back up to File and choose New. And I'll do the same thing again. I'll just pick that custom 500 by 500 pixels. I'll double click on it. That gives me a new document. You can see there's my first one, Untitled 1, and here's my second one, Untitled 2. And we'll make this one a different color. So let's just click on the background color swatch and I'll pick, I don't know, blue, something like that, and click OK. I'm now going to flood fill that. Instead of using Alt and backspace, I'm going to use Command or Control and backspace. That gives me the background color, and that flood fills that particular image with that color. So I've now got 2 images effectively. I've got this one, a red one, and I've got a blue one. So I now want to get the blue one into the red one. To do that, I'm just going to select the whole of the blue file. So to do that is Control or Command and A. That selects the whole thing. Then I'm going to copy it, Control or Command and C. And now I can close this one down, this second one, so I'll just shut it down. I don't need to save it. And now I'm back to my original, my red square, and all I'm going to do is hit Control or Command and V. That will paste the blue image we've just copied over the top of the red image and get them both in the same document. To make sure we've got them, let's have a look in the Layers panel, and to do that just go to Window and choose Layers if yours isn't already on screen, and there you can see we've got background, that's our red image, and then if we switch on the one above it, Layer 1, that's our blue image. So far so good. We got 2 images all in the same document with the blue on top and the red underneath. The reason you can see all blue and no red is because blue is on top. But if we were to get rid of part of the blue, we would show through the red from underneath. So let's just grab hold of the eraser tool first of all, that's this one here, and all we're going to do is use a brush. I can pick any brush I like. I'm going to go for a hard round brush for this example, and all I'm going to do is make sure my opacity is up to 100%. Then if I just click in the middle of our picture, then what I do is erase a circle the same size as my brush in this top layer. So you can see here it's gone to a checkerboard in the Layers panel. That means it's clear, and that means that this circle is showing through whatever's underneath it. Now if I were to undo that, I'll just hit Control or Command and Z to undo that change. I could use a different brush of course, so I've got my eraser selected. I could pick a soft edge brush instead perhaps. And then if I just increase brush size using the square brackets keys, when I now click on it, we get a soft edge circle. And you can see there we've got a soft edged eraser. So what we've done is feathered it, and we've got this slightly obscure feathered edged, soft edged blob that's appeared by painting a hole in this layer and letting this one show through. So using an eraser is quite straightforward, but we can't really backtrack other than using the undo command, Control or Command and Z, or going up to Edit and choosing Undo Eraser. But that isn't really ideal. So I'm just going to undo it again to get back to my starting point, and instead of using the eraser, I'm going to use a layer mask. Now to add a layer mask is really easy. Just make sure you've got the right layer selected, in this case it's layer 1, and all we're going to do is click on this icon here. That's the Add Layer Mask icon. Click on that and you get a white rectangle alongside the layer in question. Now this white rectangle means that we're not making any changes. The fact that it's white means that everything is as it should be. So you'll see the whole of the blue layer and none of the red layer. Now, if we go across and we pick a brush, not the eraser, but a brush tool instead, we can then choose the kind of brush we want. So again, we can click on this and we can go for a hard-edged brush, and we can adjust brush size using the square brackets keys. And if we check our opacity and make sure that's up to 100%, we can then paint a black hole right there, and that paints a hole in the layer. So instead of erasing the actual pixels themselves, what we've done is told Photoshop to mask off a certain area and allow the layer beneath to show through. So effectively, wherever we see black, we've painted a hole. The advantage of layer masks, though, is you can also paint white into it to suppress the hole and restore the image to as it was. So if we swap to a white brush down here, we just use white instead as our foreground colour, we could then paint over the top, and we change the shape of the hole by simply painting over it. We can in fact remove it altogether, and we're back to where we started with the white layer mask. So just as we did with the eraser, we can use different brushes, so let's go for a soft edge brush instead. And provided we pick the right colour, in this case we need to go for black, we can paint a hole in the middle of it and get that same effect that we did with the eraser, only this time we're using a layer mask. And because it's a mask, we can change our brush size, we can sort of make it a different shape, do all sorts of different things to get the kind of effect we want, to blend the top layer with the contents of the bottom layer. So if you've overdone your mask and you want to paint some more white back into it to reduce it, you can quite easily. And you can keep on going till the cows come home, because all you're doing is painting black or white into the layer mask, and you're not doing anything to the pixels that make up the image itself. Now, the clever thing is, you don't have to just paint black or white. You can paint grey as well. And to paint grey, simply make sure your foreground colour swatch is on black, and then you can just reduce the opacity. If we go to halfway, about 50% or so, we'll get grey. And when we paint grey, we see a little bit of both. So you can see here in the mask we've got grey, and that means we're showing some of the top layer and some of the bottom layer as well. And the more you apply grey, the thicker it gets until it turns black. But it means you can be quite subtle in the way you mask things off. And it's quite common to use a sort of half-height opacity when you're masking to make sure you get nicely blended edges between the bits you're masking and the bits you're leaving visible. So hopefully that all makes sense of what layer masks do and how they work, but of course it's not very often that our photography will consist of red and blue squares. So let's just have a look at a proper image instead. So I'm just going to open up a shot here taken in Lindisfarne. I'm just going to double click on that. It's on my desktop. There we go. That's now loaded into Photoshop. So here we've got quite a colourful shot. We've got our foreground boat. We've got our background scene. The sky's not that interesting. Maybe that could be better. But let's look at that in just a second. Because the first thing I'm going to do is use a layer mask to do a rather hackneyed, rather corny technique. But that's a technique called popping colour. The reason I've picked it is because it serves as a really good illustration of what layer masking can do. So we've got our background layer. We've only got one layer on our image at the moment. And what we're going to do first of all is copy it. We're going to make a direct carbon copy of that background layer. And that's really easy. Control or Command and J will make you a copy of it. Now this layer 1, I'm just going to quickly turn that into black and white. So the quickest way to turn something into mono is to hold Control or Command and Shift and U. That's the shortcut for the desaturate command. If you want to do it longhand, just go up to Image, Adjustments, and choose Desaturate. So we've got a black and white image and we've got a color image, but of course they're both the same thing. So it means if we were to paint a hole in this black and white image, we would reveal the color from underneath it. So let's just quickly add a layer mask. We'll click on the icon to do that. That puts a white rectangle next to our black and white layer 1. Now, if we paint black into this rectangle, we're going to see what's underneath it. So we've got our brush. Let's just zoom in a bit to make sure we've get a nice accurate job. I'm just going to increase brush size slightly. I've got a soft edge brush. There we go. 400 pixels soft round brush. And as soon as I start to paint, we start to see the color coming through. If I zoom back, you can see what's happening. So we paint over our boat. At the moment, I've got a opacity of 49%. Let's take that up to 100 so we can do this quite quickly. If I paint over the boat, it appears in colour, and the rest of my scene stays in black and white. Now, of course, if I get it wrong, whoops, there we go, I've got it wrong, I've painted it to my sky, which I wanted to leave in mono, that's okay, because I'm using a layer mask, all I've got to do is paint white over that nasty streak here. So we just swap back to white, and we paint over it. And that gets us back to normal. So we can quite accurately go round and get our nice pop colour. Let's get out some of this green by painting white over this bit. Then we can swap to black, make sure we get all of our coloured boat in place, and before long we have a classic colour pop. We need a bit more white, so let's just paint over there. The quick way to swap between black and white is just to hit X on the keyboard, and that very quickly swaps you from background to foreground or from foreground to background. And there we go, we have a colour pop scene. So colour popping is a prime example of when a layer mask makes lots of sense and is really easy to use. But I'm not a huge fan of colour popping, so I'm now going to get rid of that. Now I've shown you how to do it, I'm going to dispose of it. And we'll go for something a bit more interesting. Now the issue with this image, it's bright and colourful and everything, but it doesn't have a very interesting sky. So that's my big problem with it. And I could, if I wanted to, I could add a new sky to it. And adding a new sky to an image would be another prime example of when layer masking makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to open a new sky. Let's just double click on this one on the desktop that I prepared earlier. There we have it. That's my moody sky. And I'm going to add this to my image of Lindisfarne, my boat on Lindisfarne. So to do that, I first of all need to select the whole thing. So that's Control or Command and A. That selects it all. Then I'm going to copy it, Control or Command and C. And then I'm going to go back to my Lindisfarne image because I've copied it. And all I have to do is paste it in. So that's Control or Command and V. That plonks my sky over the top of my Lindisfarne picture. Now normally you'll need to change the size and shape and position of a layer when you paste it over the top, so I'm going to use the transform command, so we can hold down Control or Command and hit T to take us into free transform mode. So let's just get the full width of the sky, that's the kind of thing, and we just move it up by dragging inside the bounding box, make sure our horizon's in the right kind of place. I think that looks about right there. So I'll double click inside that bounding box and that set down that new sky in place. Now to blend the two together, here's where the layer mask comes in. I don't want to just erase it because it's going to go wrong and I need some subtle edges. So instead of erasing, I make sure my sky layer is selected and my sky layer is above the background. Then I simply click on the Add Layer Mask icon. That gives me my white rectangle, and now all I've got to do is paint black into that to bring the original scene through from underneath. So we make sure that black is selected, we make sure we've got a brush, and we want a soft edge brush. At the moment that looks about the right size, about 400 pixels. So what I'm going to do is go even bigger. I'm going to take down the opacity to about sort of halfway, about half height, 50% or so. And then I'm just going to start nibbling away at that edge. Multiple clicks will get it done. That will give you a full opacity where you need it, but will also give you a bit more subtlety when it comes to actually blending stuff in. So there we want to bring through the castle, that's it, and we want to get rid of that sky there. I'll just zoom in a bit, make sure the cloud isn't sort of falling across our image. Got a nice line there. So all I'm doing here is clicking away with a brush just to get a good blend of the two images and make sure that it looks natural and looks real. And I think that's done the trick there. There we go. Now if we zoom back, we now have rather instantly added a new sky simply by layer masking. And that's how simple and how quick it is to use a layer mask to blend two images together. We can look at our original, there it is in all its glory with its bland, dull blue sky, and then by simply switching on that top layer with a mask, we have something much more interesting, all brought about through the use of a layer mask. So hopefully that all made sense. Have a go on that exercise. Just try the red and blue squares. I know it sounds simplistic, but it's a good way to get used to the feel of layer masks, what they do and how you can make them work. Then give it a try with your own images. Load up a landscape with a bland sky and see if you can add a new one and get a nice naturalistic blend along the horizon. Well, Well, I hope that all made sense. And remember, if you've got any questions about the technique used, or if you're stuck on any particular area, just leave a comment below and I can get back to you and set you on the right track. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.